Hello and welcome back to the Timeline Astrology podcast with myself, Gary O'Toole, and my guest today is Kishori. Kishori's been with me before on the podcast, and it's a pleasure to have her back on again to talk all about Rahu. She's previously talked about her epic poem, The Song of Rahu, and this series that we're recording is what we're calling the Maps of Consciousness. And we're really just tracing Rahu in each of the houses of astrology and using that as a map of consciousness. So we've previously recorded Rahu in the 1st through the 4th, and this podcast is all about Rahu in the 5th house. And what is the 5th house? Well, you'll soon find out from Rahu's perspective. But just to give you a quick list of the things that it represents, the 5th house is all about children, creativity, it's all about intelligence, it's all about speculation, it's all about future planning and what we love and what we dearly love. It's not just what we love, it's like uniquely ours. And I think this is more than any conversation I've had with Kishori, one of those where there was a lot of light bulbs going off for me in this conversation. I hope you have this same experience. So without further ado, here's Kishori.
So welcome back, Kishori.
It's a delight to be here again, Gary. It's always fun. Anyway, let's see what we can discover together about Rahu in the 5th.
And well, you just said it, fun.
Well, it is,
right?
It is. And if you make it fun, and there is a way, then all these Rahu complications, as I've said before, from a cut finger to a major bankruptcy, or it doesn't matter what it is, whatever relationship challenge, we can transform it. We have, but mind doesn't know it. And what I call the mind, which I call Mr. Frosty Breath, you know, the one that sits on like a lid on the top of a volcano. He stops it and he goes, no, you got to be realistic. It's about being real, not realistic. Anyway.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, it's about being real, not realistic.
Yes. Real. What is real? You have to ask that question, don't we? It's like, you remember that story, The Velveteen Rabbit? Do you remember that?
Yes.
And the skin horse tells the rabbit, no, that's right. The rabbit asked the skin horse. He says, "What's real?" And he said, "Oh, real is when all your skin, your fur has been rubbed off, and your legs are hanging off, and whatever it is. And when a child really, really, really loves you, that makes you real." So it's a lovely little story.
I think it's so apt as well for Rahu in the 5th, no?
Is it? Oh yes, right. I mean, yes.
The child, the child in you, the child itself, the creation, the future. The 5th house is all about creating something in the future, yes. Something ideal, something that you would love.
Yes.
You know, which is like, and like you say, it's like bringing that to the heartfield, but making that real. Yes. From that space of no conflict around that, where, of course, again, me playing devil's advocate here, bringing in Rahu and all of its conflicts, it could be expressed as someone who desires something so much and obsesses about something so much that they block off the flow.
Yes. That is the in fact, you've put your finger on the crux of the whole matter, the whole complication of living. Everything that you desire, everything that comes up in your mind, your heart, or it appears to be lacking, which is what Rahu is. He's saying, no, you haven't got that. You can't have that. You have to find a way of dropping into that frequency where it is your birthright. You're naturally going to bring that forth. Any desire brings with it fulfillment, naturally. But mind doesn't see that. And so we create this complication of getting to the state that you could just assume. takes a little practice to stay there, because the world doesn't. Well, I don't know. I suppose a few people in like say the Bushmen of the Kalahari, or natives who live in the jungles, or they know, because they haven't got too intellectualized, or whatever it is, educated in the ways of the Western world, and they know. There's a dignity there that knows I am royal, like real, real, royal. I am here, and I am a child of this universe, and I'm here for something, and I'm here to experience the maybe just the solving of the mysteries.
I love that royal real connection. I never knew that before.
No, it's the same word in French. It's real, so it's royal.
Of course, this is so appropriate for Rahu in the fifth, because the natural fifth sign of the zodiac is Leo, the royal sign. Leo.
Right. I see, it's exciting listening to you saying, "Oh, that map," and I've been there. You see, and I've looked at it without the map. I went without the map, but yeah, it's useful to have a map, but at some point you have to simply enjoy putting one foot in front of the other and walking the territory and exploring the land and feeling it in your own story.
Because this is the point we really need to thrash out, I think, about how you say there's the map and then there's the territory, whereas in astrology we're really focusing on the map always, and the labels, and reading the map, and the difference between that. Do you want to thrash that out a bit more? And the territory.
Yes. Well, as you know, one of my passions is exploring embodiment, and what living intelligence is playing at with embodying in these bodies. So we can play in the playground, but we are also the territory itself. And so I was talking to you about it before we began, and I would love to do more on that. The experience that we have at being embodied, and the complications and the various aspects of the body that we have inherited, apparently, but that you can see that inheritance in your you do a birth chart, and you can see it. You'll get that, or you've got a tendency to that,
What I'm really getting a sense of, though, is this: when you say embody, when I think of the fifth house and how it's that sense of creating something in the future, whether it's a child or something you would like, an ideal, whatever, and how you imagine that, but what you, as you say, you have to embody that.
It has to become innate, and if you think about it, or you live it, you have to find the way of just loving it, of just enjoying it. And as Jesus said, unless you become as little children don't sit down and think, all right, I'm going to stand up now, and I'm going to move this foot and that foot, and I'm going to get outside, and then I'm going to play in the sand pit. Some current moves that child, little one, to go outside and play. And he doesn't see any separation between the movement, the sitting, playing on the carpet in the living room, to finding the French doors are open and it can walk out into the garden. It's just moves them. And I used to live in a place where the harbour, they had lots of swans there, and all of a sudden, like a current would run through, they would all take off same time. So what is it that is living us?
What is it that is living us? I mean, the thing with the fifth house, and again, I could have just listed things that fifth house signify, and then we've just missed the point, and you're just really thrashing it out here and embodying it so eloquently. It's like amazing, because the fifth house is the house of intelligence. But what we understand to be intelligence, and what we're talking about here, it's not like the intellect working things out in your head, right?
So has to be innate. And while you are thinking, you are separate. You are living as a house divided. And a house divided, meaning like we're experiencing, a lot of people experience things like estrangement in families, and and of course that was predicted in the Gospels, the end times, and mother will be against daughter-in-law and father against son, etc. And it's the end times. Well, it's not the end of the world, but it's the end of the separated world, of the fragmented world. They're moving back, the returning to wholeness, and the returning of every aspect. And of course, we're talking about building the future from the 5th house. It's returning back to knowing the future is now. It doesn't have to be a long-winded process. The frequency that is home, that is from which you can live. Because we, in a way, what I see often, and some people don't understand what I mean, and I say, but we're not yet born. We are in the process. It wasn't that God created the world in 7 days or whatever it is, or as the story goes, but we are in the process of making choices now, of bringing our desired heart, the world of the heart, the world of well, non-conflict.
And this process obviously is ongoing, like you say. So obviously it brings up the issue there. And again, playing devil's advocate, if we bring in Rahu's contracted state into the 5th, how, oh, I want this, this, and this, and it has to be this and this and that. And then when you get this, and whatever, then it's like, well, actually, the future is still driving you forward, and you still have your wants and your desires, and it's more and more and more, and then it's never enough. And that could be one state of Rahu in the 5th, you could say.
If we turn this wanting into being willing to give life to, every single desire is a dreaming seed within you. It starts as a little impulse that I call a khayala. And a khayala is that lovely Bengali word, which means spontaneous whim, fancy, or desire. You know, like they talk about a child being a twinkle in his father's eye, you know. Khayala is just a most beautiful word that I was reading many years ago, that they used to talk about Ananda my ma, who would get up in the middle of the night and walk barefoot to the station because she's had an impulse, and she called it khayala. And the people would say, this is Ma's impulse, Ma's khayala. She desires to go. And following the khayala is only really possible when it's a real khayala. Because if I have a khayala to go and stand on the roof and fly, in my current state of integration, I think I might not get very far. Mm-hmm. So it's, you temper the khayala with a little bit of level, you know, and paying attention to the level. And then people who get in a muddle have kind of level confusion.
What do you mean level confusion?
The level of knowing, embodied knowing. Like, say, St. Francis of Assisi levitated, you see? It's the level at which you have embodied what we're talking about. Is it just a thought? Well, I know that there are people in the world who can levitate because I've seen them in stories and I can imagine it. But if I had the impulse, now I have to look and see which frequencies, and you have to explore it. And you have to give that impulse maybe a lifetime or more to take root and to flower.
And is that what you would describe as intelligence?
Yes, it's all living intelligence. It's all, we are bringing that capacity to live here in an apparently limited story world.
Because when I listen to you speak about that, I then obviously thinking about all the things I would like, you know, to manifest in my life. You know, that's a big word that we use, isn't it?
Yeah.
What you would like to manifest.
You give life to. I like to say give life to.
I like it. I really like it, because manifest now for me has become a word that's a bit tainted.
Yes.
Because of not coming from a place of intelligence or embodiment of that thing, where it's my mind saying, I want, but actually I don't get.
But look how we step on the feed pipe, if you like, our own process of being fed. If we simply say, oh, I would love that, wouldn't that be amazing? Oh, wow. And it's a lot of the wow factor is the way of exciting the pre-conscious or the potential conscious awareness to say yes, and you give permission. So you plant the seed, and now and again the thought might come back, and you water it with a little attention, a little bit. Oh yes, but you never put a lid on it. Never use Mr. Frosty Breath. Say not for you. You know, like
it's amazing because
the
fifth house being about children, like, is so limited in its scope when you think about it just like that, or intelligence, and you dissect all of these things in any house, in fact, or anything, right?
Yeah.
If it's not fully embodied and holistic in that sense, because I just love that phrase that you use about giving it life. You know, it's like, what am I giving life to? What what thoughts am I entertaining right now?
You remember the picture of the painting in the Sistine Chapel? God points his finger to Adam, and you know those two. That's God, or that is projection, if you like, of the life force onto some idea that we have, because we don't know. I mean, there's not any God sitting up in the sky somewhere, but that's the way that our limited mind uses, and that is that amazing picture, just giving one finger touch. And we can do that. We can actually embody that in our own hands. Even we can remove a contraction in the body simply by placing a hand on it, by letting the vortices in the palms of the hands or the rays coming from the fingers. Yes, you have to explore it, but if you have a natural interest in it, you'll end up maybe doing a healing training or something, or you'll explore it and you'll discover that's what you are, but you already are it. So trainings and things are simply ways of creating the frequencies, the rhythms that we to embody it, to bring it into form.
I'm now thinking about the more obvious expression of the fifth house, either children or lover. And I'm thinking about how, yes, in our own way, we create that, you know, child, or we have that relationship, but how that relationship, you know, for example, parents who wish something for their child, but the child has their own wish, and the conflict that can arise between those kinds of relationships, as well as lovers relationships, where I want what I want and you're not giving me what I want, or whatever it is. Like, we could bring all of these kind of conflicted states in with Rahu. How I know you have personally worked a lot with couples and mother and child relationships.
Yes.
How do you approach that? How do you bring people into that kind of state with using like this opening up with Rahu?
You create situations and experiences that people can realize, even if it's only a glimpse, that they actually are, each of us is the author, the creator of our whole experience by choice. And that circumstances, and into circumstances, I would place the emotional configurations that you have been imprinted with, because they are not permanent. They are not. They can be all modified, all changed. There's nothing that can't be, with observation and steadiness. So I will. Anyone that comes to the beginning, I find something that they love, somebody that they actually do love. And I remember once, many years ago, a very old lady, well, probably no older than I am now, but still, she seemed old. And she hadn't got anybody that she loved. And so I got her talking about her life. And she told me she'd got a little canary she loves. And I felt the connection there. And I went, right. So we take that ray, so that someone has to experience what love feels like. It doesn't have to be anything very, very big. It can be, but it has to be very individualized for that person. And if you focus on that little frequency, I can bring that desire in an individual to become whole. We can magnify that feeling of love, so that you can find the little tiny nugget of gold in any relationship, however poor it might be, however estranged it might be. And that is like a little star in the heart. So like a little twinkle, you know, like twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are, shining in my inner sky, like a diamond in my night. And anybody can play with that. Right now, put your hand on your heart. Yes, it takes, and the skill is with what I play with people, is taking people to that state of making it real by energizing that frequency. And of course, there's the skill of dissolving all past experiences, all past, whether in this lifetime or in a parent's lifetime or some, it's still all in the present moment. There actually is no past. It's all embodied in this body now. It's here. There isn't. I remember once, many, many years ago, inquiring from within about what are past lives, because there were people around when I was beginning this path of, I suppose I passed for a therapist at the beginning, but I'm not a therapist, obviously. And people would be talking about past lives, and somebody asked me a question. And answering people's questions is how I know what I can say to you with authority. I know it. There are no past lives, but there are experiences, memories, what you might call the Akashic records, or you might, well, I don't know, body memory, but we can play with them and we can rewrite absolutely everything. That's obviously one of the skills that I've evolved, is making it simple for people to play with this in the various trainings that I do. But you don't need that. If you want to hurry it up, yes, that's what we can do. But simply putting your hand on your heart and anchoring that feeling that's coming from the heart frequency. It's so, if you look up some of the stuff you can find on the internet about it, I can't remember the actual frequencies, but it's so much more intelligent. The non-local intelligence of the heart field encompasses everything, whereas the little bit of intelligence that we have in the frontal lobes that come from the mind only in separation, and when it's not fully embodied and loved, then it can't become real. And therefore you're always struggling, and it's not meant to be a struggle. If it's difficult, if it seems difficult to you to bring forth what you want, or to allow it to grow, then you're on you're on one of those loops that will take you round in circles, like rolling the boulder to the top of the hill and letting it roll down, and it rolls up again, and so we get that experience of swinging, the bipolar effect, the schizophrenic experience, the effect in the mind that is in separation. A house divided will not stand. So the first thing when you want to bring something forth, I mean, I actually, although it may not, a conception of a child may not always take place with the love feeling, two bodies actually have to meet. Otherwise you don't conceive. And at some level, it's some kind of expression, ordinary physical connection takes place, and then you get you conceive a child. You get those two cells merging. But if it's not innate, if it's not embodied, if it's not loved, if you don't go, oh wow, that feels gorgeous, or oh, I would love to do that, and it doesn't matter what it is, from a child wanting to taste ice cream to finding your best beloved person that you're going to experience the heights of ecstasy with. It doesn't matter what it is. You've got to love it, and you've got to find the place within you where that feeling comes, that feeling. And I'm telling you that it's across the board, but it's no good me saying it. Every single person has to explore this for themselves. And it's an alchemical process, and it does actually speed things up if you're playing with another person. Like, you know this from your playing with your, or working, playing with, exploring with, inquiring with your clients.
Well, no, we can say playing with, because I think that's what we're doing. And you know, the conversations we've been having, it's like, it's funny how it's just obviously unfolding as it should, right? But like in the past, the conversations and how you would have explained that to me before, I got it. Like, I mean, I intellectually got what you're talking about, embodying it. But now I'm really getting that sense of you need to really love it and flesh it out and live it, you know?
Come as a child, like, unless you become as little children, you shall not enter the kingdom of heaven. So what is the kingdom of heaven? It's that state of what I call sunny inner weather, everything being all right. That moment, Christmas morning, that first day of the holidays, that, wow, something's happening, beautiful. And not as an imaginary state, but as a reality. And I don't mean just our individual lives, but the Dharma or our calling. Anybody that's listening to this has got to have had a calling to find out a little bit more than the surface level, because otherwise they wouldn't have come to you in the first place, or they wouldn't even be listening to it, because they wouldn't be drawn. So anyone that's drawn to investigate a bit deeper about what's really running this show.
I just feel like this is it, right? This is the crux of it, right? Because, right, it is, right? Because it's like you get that thing of the fifth house being like, and astrologers say this all the time, it's the house of Purva Punya, right? Yes. And it's all about past life credit. And so that then, the way you're explaining it so beautifully actually makes more sense to me than saying, okay, well, whatever you've put out there and the choices you made in the past is coming around now, and this is what you get now, and you have to, well, make do with that, right? But it's not quite like that, right? Is it?
No, it's not quite like that. You can bypass anything. There is a kind of, well, we might call it like miracle, magic, a shift. Just like, as I've said before, the punchline of a joke, lifting something into a different frequency. And we've all experienced that. Suddenly going, oh my God, I thought I was going to die, or I thought the keys were lost, or whatever it is. And all of a sudden that's the relief when you realize that actually it's all right. And the fact of the matter is that it's always all right. That just that we're not very skilled at moving beyond these foggy minds that believe circumstances. We believe in the fog. We believe that Rahu, for example, or foggy Rahu, is actually out to cause us difficulties. But it's not. I've got to go back to Hanuman. I have to, I haven't said it yet today, but you remember Hanuman stands on the shore of Bharat. Rama has sent him to get the herb of grace from Lanka. And he's standing on the shores of India, Bharat, wondering how he's going to get over to Lanka, to the island of Sri Lanka. And standing there scratching his head, and a little child pulls at his robe. And Hanuman looks down. He's a great lord, and so it could be a little mosquito, but it's a little child, and he's going, Lord, have you forgotten you're immortal? You can jump. And Hanuman goes, oh, thank you. And he jumps. So the problem of having to fulfill the king's command and get this herb from Lanka, it was like, oh my God, my king has said I've got to get it and I can't. How do I? And this is even a great lord forgot. So the what was it in the Ramayana? I don't know, but somewhere, one of those wonderful stories, it's just illustrating how we get into our heads. We get out of that relaxation, embodied, innate royalty that we are. We came here not by the intention of the ordinary conscious mind. I mean, who are you before you were born? Where were you? I mean, these questions, they freak the mind out because you can't imagine it. Mind doesn't have the neural pathways. So the neural pathways are actually in the process of being updated, upgraded at the moment, especially as we gather together and speak of these things and enjoy them, share.
So when someone then says, oh, well, this is a blessing, and therefore, like, I'm blessed with this, which is, you're embodying that, you're loving that thing, right? Which also might show that, oh, well, this isn't, right? Or because this isn't a past life credit I'm due. Are you, like, in your mind or in body, and are you embodying that then? Because you think that is not for you or whatever.
It's a question of identity, Gary. Everyone has to actually realize who and what they really are. And that's why self-inquiry or the exploration of the quantum heart is so vital, especially now as the as the processes are speeding up, accelerating, whether you are in a Rahu Mahadasha or you're in or something else. It's all speeding up. So what was hidden, in that lovely expression I often use, syrup on shit, is what's hidden is emerging to be seen, not to harm us, but for us to choose from our power, from our love. Do you love this? No. Then transform it. And that's just a way of expressing that the area of exploration that both you and I are engaged in, finding the way through to make it consistent, that surrender to allowing the heart frequency to operate, and for what appeared to be a total disaster, a deadlock, a double bind, like Hanuman on the shores of Bharat, and not because life in the form of a little mosquito or a little child or a lost key or whatever it is, or turning up late to something, it doesn't matter. If you surrender to the heart, everything which appears to be against you, the power locked in it will unleash. I'm saying it advisedly. I know it to be so. Doesn't mean that I've solved every single little thing in my life already, because they are useful. They are showing me, this little me that's in Kishori, how to live on purpose, how to take literally every little drawback, every little ache, pain, difficulty, into releasing the trapped energy and being for your well-being. Rahu is a what do we call it? He's a psychopomp. He leads the way. It's like can be very mercurial.
No, it's. I'm just wondering, just on that point, then how for somebody who is in there, like you say, there is no conflict in the heart field, right? So if you are conflicted about something that you want and you're not getting what you want, or it's not coming fast enough, or whatever, that you are in your mind about it.
Yes.
Basically, how do you then speak to someone, who is in that conflicted state and in their mind? Just let's do this now, because I feel like I'm kind of going in my head about it, because I'm obviously trying to keep this conversation about Rahu in the fifth.
Yes.
But really, it's about going into the heart and embodying it, right? So get me back into how would I go back there?
Well, take your hand, look at it and go, hand.
Hello, hand.
And put it on your heart. And that is living intelligence without intellect, but with surrender. You're just doing it, just allowing it to happen. And it begins to create, to complete the loop. Now, hands and fingers, this is a very beautiful thing, start to bud at the same time as the little human heart starts to beat. They are part of the heart field, which is the whole of that chest area. And you are completing a loop. And it's calming. And you can look up the science behind all this, all the various researches, but we're not here to explore that at the moment. But anyone who wants to can look at it. You create a completely different energy. Your mind starts to surrender to its root in the heart. The breath starts to relax. You start to produce different chemicals in the body. The breath comes, more breath. You start to relax. Stress starts to evaporate. And of course, practice will enforce this. But you are surrendering the tendency to think it out. And you're never going to think it out. So putting your attention to embodying the heart field and practicing that regularly. And there's many, many other things that come from that. So you may get inspirations to start to go for a walk, or to have a bath, or to ring a friend. But what happens is you start to activate a different kind of intelligence. And if the fifth house is about intelligence, and you intellectually even start to embrace the thought of Rahu being like the child to Hanuman, Relax. Know that you are already here with everything you already are, royal. All the intelligence. The you that is thinking did not make this mind and this body. As I said before, where were you before you were born? So relax. And then when thoughts come into the mind, they are like inspirations rather than thinking.
So that little boy tugging at Hanuman's robe.
Yes.
And that time you have that whatever going on in your head, that conflict. Is that in fact actually a doorway into opening that up?
It's all a doorway. It's all a doorway. Nothing ever happens that you have not allowed either to be perceived, experienced through your filters, and whether they are the particular astrological imprints at birth or conception, or whether they are stemming from some belief, or it doesn't matter where they come from. The way through is now, and now, and now. And the only way you bring yourself back to embodying now is to stop that running around in your mind. It's okay, we can't stop the mind functioning, but the mind is not for thinking. The mind is an expression of the embodied heart. The mind is for focusing. The mind is for a way of seeing. But there are many other ways of intelligence to express, beginning to move from that state. Look, I'm just moving my hands now, and I'm moving my body. When you think, stop and allow your body to just rest a moment, breathe and move. But just allow movement, tiny micro movements. Because movement, that kind of movement, is another way. But this is not about me saying what I would do with the groups or people, but it's about anyone can begin right now by simply taking a breath, feeling your body, feeling your feet on the floor, creating a little bit of proprioception, feeling the air around you, hand on heart, and start to activate that frequency of the non-local intelligence that opens up to solutions to the most incredible or unbelievable solutions.
The image that keeps coming to mind as you speak is, and I'm going back to that image of the child and the heart beating and the arms, yes. But also the image of a child lying in a cot, reaching out for the breast or whatever, it's kind of reaching out, and that being very much the fifth, the desire for something. And it's fifth house is very much about something I want, and it's very much oftentimes in the future. It's like, it's very future oriented in astrology, the fifth house. So how do we, as we're reaching out, and especially if we're including others, like I want to have a child, I want to create this, whatever, or I want this lover, I want whatever. How do we, by reaching out, also stay anchored?
Reaching out is not just an individual personal thing. What is reaching out through you? What are you really? Your identity. So when a child spontaneously reaches out, it is the life force, it's consciousness embodying to explore itself. Love always expresses. Love continually expresses. Love moves to embody. That's what we're in the process of now. We're right full on in a very accelerated process of coming to birth.
I'm just imagining, and then thinking of that child playing and just playfulness in itself being obviously the fifth house. How, I'll just be very personal about it for myself, how so little play has been present in my life in recent years, yes. Which happen to be Rahu years. And they have been exciting in many other ways, but they've been intellectually probably overstimulating and all of that. And I've been using the conflict in a way to kind of gather momentum and like go against the grain for a while and then push back off that and flow into openness again. I've been doing all of that and I know what I'm doing, but at the same time, there's been so little just spontaneous play like a child would for no reason other than this is me expressing myself now.
That's that lovely word, Keala. which I fell in love with when I first saw it. Spontaneous whim, desire, or fancy. So if you're in the middle of, let's say, it's happened to me many times, in the middle of an important appointment is just coming up, and you've forgotten about it or whatever, and you try to resolve it. I've tried to resolve things at the last minute when I'm about 10 miles away and I'm late, and all of a sudden I hear a message that it's been cancelled, don't worry. And it's all the non-local intelligence that we can begin to tune into by practicing anchoring in the heart field, anchoring mind into the heart field. You tune into the place where you are lived from, where the real you is living you. Because there is another you beyond this conflicted, running in circles person that you know. And you know it best when you are supporting somebody else, or when you're maybe lying in a field looking up at the clouds on a summer's day, or, you know, when you're doodling. Doodling is a wonderful way.
I mean, I do obviously do that to some extent, but it's mostly, like you say, it's actually, yes, through meeting other people and through astrology, it has like opened up a curiosity in me and all of that. But at the same time, there isn't that just spontaneous, well, it does obviously happen, but it doesn't happen as much as I would like it to.
Okay, I understand. That's a choice. The state of being childlike, curious, awake, alive, and interest, it is a state. And the heart field is a very broad brush description of that state. Now, we all know those states of, like I said before, Christmas morning or the first day of the holidays, or realizing that somebody that you likes you, or, you know, those little wow moments. And simply choose that state right now. Put your hand on your heart and go, okay, body, mind, heart, whatever you all are, this is what we are choosing from now on. Are you all on board? Tell your cells. Cells, no entropy anymore. When you divide, please divide according to the blueprint of spontaneous life. And you know, there's a lot more to it than just what I'm saying. You know, but I can't put it all in. But what I am doing is these words are coming from a state of playful exploration of the leela, the story, play. That leela, that word is another lovely Sanskrit word, play and story at the same time. We are all winners of our own X factor. We are all designers of our life. And we either do it consciously, deliberately, on purpose, in alignment, or we allow the default that Jung spoke about. You know, unless you make the unconscious conscious, you'll be forced to do you'll live it out robotically.
I feel that one area that I do let go and become more spontaneous and play is when I play music and my body starts to move and dance, which is quite natural for me because I do move a lot. And I used to be like, well, I danced a lot when I was young. I would spend all of my time in my room dancing to music. So I then eventually became more like structured in that, in like, you know, working out and, you know, becoming a yoga teacher at one point. It's all these kind of movement practices, but the spontaneity and movement on dance, it's for me my doorway in, I would say, which I probably don't open as much as I should, because it is just literally like it whooshes me down like a slide into that kind of just and into the pool, and I'm like, oh, you know.
I know. Now you know what you can do right now, this second. Hand on heart, and see that the seeds of a greater expression, a fuller expression of your love of moving and dancing and following that rhythm. You can see that the seeds are there. And all you have to do now is breathe on them, give them attention, and go, yes. And you see those little dancing cells going, oh, can we have more? And you go, yes, yes, yes. And what happens is that if you give that consent now, you give that yes, tomorrow or later on, you'll find somebody invites you to a dance or a webinar or a little course or I don't know what, but the pathways will open up. You probably walk down the road and you see that somebody's doing a 5 rhythms movement or I don't know what, anything.
Actually, I did see something today online.
There you are then. You see how it's all of a piece. It's not in the part, you know, Gary, the big thing that is, you talk about things going over people's heads, but it's all now. We are designing, let's call it a virtual reality, interactive, spontaneous, multidimensional flow, like the Aurora Borealis. Nothing is in the past, nothing is in the future. It's all now. And the more skill you have, or the more curiosity you have, and as you said, speculation is fifth house thing. The more curiosity you have, call it curiosity rather than speculation, the more inquiry, and the more you go, oh, I'd really like to see that, what that woman is saying. How can it all be now? Of course there's past, and of course there's future, but it's not so. It's an experience. But right now, in this pivotal point of the eye, right now, there aren't any eyes really, but there's the experience of one. Right now, you make your choice. And I tell you, next time we speak, you'll tell me you've been doing more dancing. I'm sure.
I'm sure of it. I'm sure of it. Because every time we speak about these things, and just even the practice of putting my hand on my heart, that has centered me so much in recent weeks and months now, that it's just given me this kind of groundedness in Rahu, where it had, you know, I had my practices previously, but it was, you know, it was a struggle in many ways. And I, like I say, I played with the struggle a lot, and I was opening and closing a lot and all of that consciously in a way. Because I'm so conscious of Rahu, I was consciously doing it, right? If I wasn't conscious of it, I don't know if it would take me over more or less. And sometimes I actually feel like, I think to myself, am I actually too in control of it? Do I actually need to really let go? And so, because this is what I see in clients all the time when they have a Rahu experience, it's so conflicted, in fact, so conflicted that the release is so monumentous. You know what I mean? It really opens things up for them, right? Whereas I'm so controlled in that, oh, I'm not going to go too crazy, you know? And so the openings aren't as, I think we spoke about this before, right? I don't know if I'm doing that or I'm being too conscious or self-conscious.
You know, until we really, really wake up and relax and allow, there is nothing that you do, that you, the divine in you, the living intelligence in you, is not allowed. You've allowed everything. You're exploring. And the pendulum swings and eventually comes to rest in the center. And you become your own a tent pole, if you like, the Aleph Beit, the I am at the center of your universe, your story.
This one liner that I really love about your Song of Rahu really encapsulates it all, like really this sense of a call to the radical withdrawal of projection. Feels to me like it's even more important now at this stage, moving on through the houses of astrology at the fifth, that begins to be that like projection onto the lover, or the child is not doing what you want them to do, or whatever, right? And until we do that, we are going to be conflicted in some way.
You are the sovereign, the you that is really you, the you that's gathered in yoga. I call it yoga because it's not yoga postures necessarily. They are part of it, but it's the you that's gathered in all the bits. You are the sovereign, you are the Lord, you are the ruler, you are the king, you're the royal personage that runs your life. And while we imagine that another person has power to do anything, or a thing, or a circumstance, or an object, there's only subject. This is all a subjective experience. There are no objects. That certainly the only power they have is power that you have given. And when you get into a complicated situation, or some terror, or some awful thing, some nightmare that we have imagined up, accept that there's only the individual that has had the power to allow that. And one of the things that seems to be happening in the amount of conflict in the world at the moment, of the disturbance, is simply to enable us to make that choice. What state? And as simple as me suggesting you put your hand on your heart and love your dancing, you know that you're going to dance more. You already know you made the choice, but you're not going to do it. It's going to appear to happen. That is how we give life. We love it. You remembered your love. You put your hand on your heart and said, so be it. It's like hand on heart is so be it. And then allow. And there are lots of extra things we can do with imagination and we won't go into all that. But this is the first step. The first step is to allow that seed of loving an expression, and all dancing is an expression of your embodied being, same as everything. Making love, drawing a picture, buying a house, going for a walk, having a pet, whatever it might be. Remembering to water your flowers. I always forget. No, don't always forget, but I have to forget.
You have again preempted the next discussion because you're going off into the next part, which we'll talk about next one, which is Rahu in the sixth. Because obviously naturally leads on that when you love something, when you have created something, when you have had a child, for example, or you get a plant, or you have a pet, you have to feed the plant and the pet and the child, and you have to do all of these things, and you have to work at it, which is what the sixth house in astrology is all about. And where we could say that maybe that's the first sort of major obstacle we reach. The third house was seen as a lesser obstacle, because in astrology they classify houses as different kinds, like upachaya would be places that grow with time. Third and sixth are those, but the sixth is the first dusthana, they call it, which is called quote unquote bad place, right? So it's I have to change the nappies now, and I have to pay the bills, and I have to do all of these things I really love them, and I've created, and I really want to keep these going, but I have to maintain them now. Yes. So when we talk about Rahu in the sixth next time, because you've started opening that discussion, it's going to be interesting to talk about how Rahu behaves there.
Yes. You know, I can't pass this I won't let it go without talking about the difference between loving and the kayala, the spontaneous movement of love, and strategy. Now, strategy is that to-do list. I want a baby, but I don't really want a baby because, I've got to get up in the night and I'll lose this and I'll lose my figure. And for example, there are many things and there's always a price to pay. But when you love, this total devotion, what price? Your lover wants to go to one movie and you want to go to another, and you're such love and devotion that it costs nothing to let go.
And when I think about my own lover and how I was like, okay, I'm willing to do anything for you.
Exactly. And this is where I come to now. It's the Heros Gamos. This is the crux of everything I play with, to explore. The Heros Gamos is the love affair, the sacred love affair of the formless for form. And it's a bit of Advaita Vedanta language, but it's Shiva for Shakti. We could use Shiva as the one that lies unconscious beneath the feet of Kali, is dancing on the naked corpse. But it's like the energy of consciousness of the unborn, the unknown, as it desires to move into form. I was a secret treasure, says that Sufi quote, and I wished to be known. I wished to know myself. And all that we are, our true identity, that we have mostly forgotten in the mind, you will find through the heart, the embodied heart, and you will find that. And that gives you the most incredible dignity, power, peace, no struggle, no waiting. I remember one teacher once said to me, and I said, all I have to do is go home and wait. This was many, many, many years ago. And he said, oh, no question of waiting, sister. It's instant. And when we get that frequency of catching on fire with love, with devotion, then there is no question. Absolute surrender, infinite patience, absolute surrender. It brings instant freedom. Instant. And if it's not instant, it's because we put conditions on still, or we haven't played with it, we haven't explored it, we've not fully recognized who we are. So I would say the key to success, of worldly success or freedom, the four yogic flowers, the Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha, you know, the your purpose, your wealth, abundance, your freedom, and your pleasure, your liberation. All of those come from exploring and discovering and owning, and that state of knowing and being, embodying your true identity. And it isn't yet born. It's always bringing more. It's always coming out, bringing forth more. So self-inquiry, Atma Vichara, is it's a done deal. It is the path of the future, if you like, the future which is already within us, the unfolding. You know, like the oak tree is fully in the acorn. What you are, and the destiny, and the dharma, and the freedom, and the miracle, if you like, the magnificence of what we are, it's already here, innate.
I think that's one of the there's so many important points you're making here, and things that are just like hitting me over the head and getting me to like
maybe it's
drop down into my heart. But that is one of them, because Rahu, I would associate Rahu in the fifth as the acorn complaining that it's not the tree. Do you know what I mean? Right?
Yes, perfect. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. The acorn simply has to be, nothing else to do. But if there's a wind or an animal that moves it around or something, it just it can't do anything else except be an acorn. Now we are a little bit more intricate in these magnificent bodies, but we don't exist in time and space. So we're not running out of time. We are moving into the most incredible, incredible moments. I mean, when I say incredible, let's not call it incredible because they are believable, but moments of utter awe, let's call it awesome, magnificence. And this is what's drawn me in my curiosity. You know, my body's going to be 80 next year. I can't believe it. Sometimes I go, what, 80? I'm ageless, you know, but I know that I'm not running out of time. Time is a movable feast, and any quantum scientist, quantum physicist is going to tell you the same. People are exploring space know there's all sorts of weirdnesses that they can't explain, and even quantum scientists live ordinary lives. They eat, they get dressed, they go for walks, they talk. They don't all just talk about quantum physics, and they know that there are so many other things beyond the thinking of theory, and I don't even want to go into it, but the innate, embodied knowing and being, embodying innate, your identity, what you actually are, and the power. And wherever you see it possible in somebody, in Star Trek movie or in some story or somebody you actually know, remember that whatever the mind can conceive of, you can make a reality by going, oh, wow, yes. And that little seed in you, that little dreaming seed, you put that finger of the divine, like the Sistine Chapel, and go, I give life to you. It's like an E.T. finger, you know, E.T. with his little light on the end goes, bingo, I give life to you. And you bless your creations. It's good we're talking about the fifth house. I bless you, my child. I bless you, my thought, my inspiration, my dreaming seed. Grow. I love you. It's fun. It's a game.
It's fun, but it's also, it's stirring a lot of emotions in me, because obviously I have, you know, held back a lot and not given, it's like having a child and not giving it permission to play.
Yes.
You know, it's like, why would you have a child and not give it permission to play?
Okay, so I'm going to put my finger on one more what do you call it, place we can stop ourselves. Forget that word regret. No regrets. Whatever you did, you did. Whatever I say, I say. I am, and that which been dammed up by you, now you can tell Mr. Frosty Breath, take the lid off my volcano, uncap it.
But that's what I feel like I'm doing. I feel like I'm actually not just unconsciously or subconsciously, but consciously putting a lid on it. It's like I want to build up as much pressure as possible. And then because I know that once I let the lid off, it's going to all flow. Like it's going to be a major flow.
Yeah, but you know what? The same thing with all of this. Put the whole lot in a little bubble, take it to your heart and say, oof, God, what am I doing about all of this? And let that part of you that is the real living intelligence run the show. Say, I give permission. But make it at a pace that it's not going to freak me out.
Parts of me don't think that I enjoy, well, no, not parts of me. I know that I enjoy this kind of intensity, this pace. Like I know, like when it comes to a deadline, when it comes to, oh, I need to get this done. I want to create this. I want to write this. I want to do this. I always leave it till the last minute because I love the rush.
Because it loves quantum leaps. It loves those thresholds. Look at the way water is water until it freezes at a certain frequency or until it boils at another frequency. And there are other things, as different kinds of waters as well. I don't know scientifically all of that. But it loves thresholds. It loves taking a leap. It loves jokes. Just see how it loves jokes. It loves that. What you're doing or what you seem to be doing, it's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just what you like to play at. Just like, now listen, just like building to orgasm. What are you going to do? Just a quick, or are you going to build and build and build and build and and the deliciousness of the let go.
It is like that. It's like this constant building up. And perhaps also I would have to admit a fear of letting go completely.
Yes. Well, that is the big thing about human beings. When we give up the identity, the identification with being an individual and believe that we'll go back. I used to have the fear of being a soup when I was young, when I was really little. I can remember feeling, well, what happens when you die or when you live? And I said, I don't want to be a soup. But we're not, because that is not the movement of truth, of life. It loves differentiation. It's not, we're not looking for sameness. We're not looking about dissolution. As we let go, we become more individualized. We are the individualization of the absolute.
I need to thrash this out a bit more because I remember, because you would know this as well, I went to the Osho ashram a few years ago. I stayed there for a summer and I was freaking out from the moment I entered, because like you could say, oh, he's in a Rahu dasha, he's in a Rahu cycle, he wants to be very much like identified as an individual, whatever you might say. But I was freaking out that I had to take off all my clothes and wear these robes that everybody else was wearing and behave like everyone else is behaving, and in the evenings do the whole ritual and dance and falling down on the floor and in a sea of people, lying there in a sea of people, and then thinking, well, this is great in one way because I was actually a relief. It was a complete relief. On one hand, it was a complete relief, but on the other hand, now I need to like understand what you say here about being able to let go completely, but not be soup.
Yes.
I need to understand that a bit more. Like, how do you let go on the one hand and dissolve into the oneness of everything, and at the same time be an individual at the same time?
By exploring and tasting it in little ways, and then reflecting on it, And any withholds or any holding back, you take to the heart, and the heart frequency reveals itself so tenderly. When you keep taking that and going, explain to me, show me, because the mind where we see things is also the child of the heart and is the beloved. So it has a natural desire to know, to understand, to be clear. It loves that. It also likes mysteries, and it likes puzzles, and it likes, games like that, hide and seek. It's all a game of hide and seek. But when you say, okay, I have to trust you because you made all this, but it's not something separate from you. It's the living intelligence that is what you really are. We are all living intelligence. And we've modified it to experience the expansion within a particular frequency, a particular structure, which is your unique contribution to the whole.
It's almost like you say, it's all a game of hide and seek, whether you're having an argument with your spouse or your child, or you're struggling with something you want to make happen and it's not happening. It's just constantly this hide and seek.
Yes, and I tell you, they talk a lot about it in enlightened circles about simply witnessing. Now, witnessing is a lot more delicious than just witnessing. So much can be said about it, but you are observing, you're experiencing, you're feeling, you're tasting, you're smelling the rose petals of it. You are a full consciousness, full spectrum, living intelligence, fully open, every petal. And that's what we are here for, to allow. So allow in somewhere where it's not so scary. It's not about freaking out and going psychotic. It's about having the experience in ways. You don't teach quantum physics to a 5-year-old, but the 5-year-old will know innately the principles of quantum physics, because that's what it is, living intelligence.
It just seems to keep going back to that, just the playfulness of a child in the moment.
Yes. It's exploring and everything. And then you were talking about what we started before we began about promiscuity and the words that we use to describe a certain pattern, a set of behaviors with a negative connotation implied in the word itself. But it may be that teenager has got very strong sexuality, and that is life force. And so, yeah, for some people it might be very scary or not the way that I would go. But it doesn't matter ultimately. I could tell you the range of things I know it doesn't matter, but we're not going to go into all of that now. But actually, there's nothing. It's nothing that is not allowed by living intelligence. But as you wake up, as each one of us wakes up to become more fully in full spectrum, with all the senses, and the senses we haven't even yet discovered, unfolded. This is really child's play for what we are and what we can become. Because what we are, that's the being, and what we are becoming is infinite. We are an expression of being. When you wake up to know your true identity, then the becoming is limitless. It's infinite. It never ends.
It's all a game.
That's right. It's that. What is it? The point at the center of the circle, which is not fixed. It's not in a fixed place. It's what does it say? The point is everywhere, and the circumference is nowhere, or the other way around. But it's like it doesn't matter. If you take that point in the heart, that point of light, that little twinkling star, and whatever you know yourself to be right now, it doesn't matter. It's the place of unfolding. So an acorn, or a little sprouting acorn, or a little sapling, or a full-blown oak tree, or something more, or an oak tree that creates a whole forest of oak trees. The similes or the descriptions, the metaphors, they run out of capacity. You have to take it to the heart and allow your own knowing, because your own knowing is brilliant. That's everybody. There is a brilliance that is universal, the universal intelligence, what anyone can see, know, feel, experience. If you truly desire that, then that you just go yes, and that will happen.
What seems to be a case a lot is that we plant seeds and forget.
Okay, that's cool.
Right? So it's like you plant a seed, and then of course the analogy would be, well, you plant a seed, but you don't expect it to like sprout up immediately. You keep watering it and nurturing it, and it eventually comes up, and you don't doubt that the fact that it would break soil. But what we might seem to do, I don't know, maybe you can help me, but it's like we all plant seed constantly and then move on to the next and forget that we've done that.
But that's okay. We planted, who knows? Who knew planted it? Some time ago, some years ago, some centuries ago.
But what, like in terms of fifth house, let's say we're just about enjoyment, and one word that came up before we started this conversation about being bored or boring, right? Finding someone boring, like a relationship boring after a time, or whatever it might be, or I'm working on this project and now I'm bored with it, I'm going to shelf it, whatever. It's like we keep planting, but we keep moving on. How do we reignite that spark?
You take it to the heart and you find ways of embodying it. If you really don't want it, it's finished and done with, let it die. And otherwise, it needs the juice. It needs the juice of flesh and blood, the experience of the soil, and it needs to be in the body and loved and breathed and enjoyed. And movement and breath and practices like some forms of yoga, not planned with the mind. Let's say like Qigong, exercising the energy of the field around you. Choosing to plant, knowing that there is a field. We talked about proprioception earlier on, but experiencing the space around you. How far can you expand the bubble of your space? And all of it is reflecting that experience of being free within the womb, like a baby. Baby doesn't experience constriction until it's time to be born. And what we're experiencing now is that movement out of the old womb into some new space. Fill your space, your personal space around you, with dreams and expressions, because it's all expression of the magnificent, innate, unlimited being that you are, as it's moving into becoming more and more the oak tree, the magnificent, far more than the oak tree. And as we reach a tipping point, let's say, of beings alone, or you can't be alone because you're never alone, but in gatherings together, we are about to design this new world. It's the chaos that's around. It's like, wow. And when you realize, like I did, God, maybe nearly 40 years ago, although I knew far sooner than that, but there was a moment when I thought, all I've got to do is tell people. I honestly thought that for a few days after, for ages after the realization that the story around me was plastic, was infinitely customizable. Although I didn't have the skill to customize it, I knew it was. I knew it is. And I thought, all I have to do is tell people, and then I'm superfluous. And I really genuinely thought that for a long time. And then I began to see, well, yes, people listen, but they mostly, they forget, they don't practice. They go back to paying attention to the circumstances and believing circumstances are real. Circumstances are real when they are an expression of your heart, when you love them. And when it's something that you don't love, it's not real. So don't energize.
This is such an important point, because we talk about astrology and dashas. That's literally, dasha means circumstance.
I didn't know that. Yes.
That's what that word means. So it basically means this is your circumstance. But like you say, if you're not fully embodying it, like it doesn't matter if someone tells you, oh, you're in a Rahu dasha, Uranus, Jupiter, Dasha, whatever, right? That's the map, like you say. It's not the territory.
No, and you make it your own. I mean, look, why do people climb Everest, and why do people go trekking in the deep rainforest? And because they want to explore. Why do people go into outer space? Because they're looking to expand their horizons. They're looking, what more? What more? What more? What more can I explore? What more can I know? What more can I feel? What more can I do? What more can I, because that is love. That is what love does. It expands.
Did you know that Dasha is also, for like a bit of, this might interest you, the Dashas themselves are, if you draw them out as a map, as a diagram, will represent the golden ratio.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, you must tell me more about that when we have
Yeah, we
time.
can go into it another time, but it's literally like our map, our lives are perfectly expanding all the time. So it's like everything is, this is why I always say, like, everything is happening perfectly.
It is, even your mind that's judging the contracted state to polarize. It's just a little game that you like to play. You're playing a little game. Follow your Keala. Learn about what a Keala is, and it's all okay. And when you practice this practice of taking it to the heart frequency, to the living intelligence that includes all known intelligence and brings you the perfect solution for you. It's like, it's magical. We live in a completely magical world. We can choose it to make it a nightmare, or we can make the choice right now, even if your mind doesn't believe me. Your desire is, I love it to be magical. Hand on heart and say yes, even if your mind is chuntering on, going, no, it's a load of old nonsense, because it will, and it's okay. It's okay, all of it.
It always pains me to finish these conversations because I feel like there's so many nuggets that I know I could keep drawing out of you, but I feel like this is probably as good a time as any to wrap it up. I'm conscious of the time.
I agree. It's getting on very late.
Yeah, it's getting on, but I've really loved this conversation. I personally have. I didn't realize I had so many questions about the fifth house and Rahu, because I just felt the need, and thank you for entertaining me, and thank you for playing with me again.
I love it. I love playing with you. The only thing we have to do is realize that when contraction or misery or anything happens, is go to the non-local intelligence, the intelligence that you actually are. Hand on heart is a very good way to activate it. There are many others: breathing, moving, singing, dancing, but hand on heart is very quick.
So I was pained to stop that conversation at that point, but we had to get on, and I do look forward to the next conversation we have about Rahu in the 6th house, continuing on with our Maps of Consciousness series. So if you'd like to check out Kishori in the meantime, you can go to her website. It's magicmakeover.com. That's magic with a K, MAGICK -makeover.com. My own website here is timelineastrology.com, and you can also find me at patreon.com/timelineastrology. Patreon is a platform for creators like myself to have supporters, patrons who support my work. I write daily posts for patrons, as well as monthly forecasts and video forecasts and horoscopes every month. So, and a whole lot more. Have a look. It's patreon.com/timelineastrology. You can sign up for just $5 a month. And thank you so much for listening to this podcast all the way through to the end. And I look forward to connecting with Kishori again next time, and connecting with you. And until next time.